I'll be doing a power jack repair on a Sony Vaio. Now you might be asking, you know, getting tired of watching me do the power jack repairs, but there's so many different ways to repair power jacks, so many different models, and so I think we could just do a whole series of videos about power jacks and it still wouldn't cover everything. The problem with this one is that jack right in there is just all smashed to bits. I replaced a power jack on this model before. What I like to use is the Radio Shack size M. It's shaking around a bit. Size M power jack. Big metal one. Screws right on the outside of the machine. And her power adapter is also failing too. So what I like to use is Radio Shack adapter plugs and then the extension cable. Just solder this right to their existing power adapter, cut off their old tip, and then that's fixed. Which works out well because the Vaio uses a specialized tip. Well, since I'm replacing both the jack and the tip, I got a size M Radio Shack tip. Fits right into the size M power jack, so it's all going to work out. The trick to getting this power jack replaced is to get this CD player out. It's fairly easily accessible. Once you get that drive out, you don't have to take the whole system apart. So this might not take too long unless I have a lot of problems. Again, first thing I do is pad the desk so I'm not scratching things up. And then get the CD player out, which the way to do that is unscrew this plate here first. Actually, first I need to find my screwdriver. This plate comes up. Yes, that's the hard drive, but in this model, under the hard drive is the screws to get the CD player out. Leave it to Vaio to make things difficult, or leave it to Sony. You see I just dropped that screw there. That's why it's smart to get a magnetic tip on your screwdriver. You can't really see that. This way you can get your screws out and catch them if they go astray. And the hard drive slides out and pops out. And these two screws here holding the CD drive. And that drive should pop right out now. Let's see what happens. And it doesn't. Let me check in here. Okay, so we're going to try to take the CD drive out now. Slides right out. Might be a little tougher than I expected. Gotta get in there to get to that power jack. Might have to take the whole thing apart. What I'm going to do now is remove this plate here so I can get to the power jack, and that'll expose the wires, and then I'll be able to put the jack in and make a good connection to the wires. Okay, now that I got that plate off, I have access to the power jack here, and I'm just going to pull that out, put the new jack in, and put the wires in. I'll show you how I do that after I get the jack out. So as you can see now, this is vacant here. The hole for the power jack goes all the way through now. You can see through it. And the two wires for power jack are sitting right here, waiting for us to solder a new positive and new negative lead, which is going to come off of this power jack, which we're going to install. So let's take, I guess, this opportunity to take this one now and attach a positive and negative wire to it, and then put it through the hole of this computer. Okay, we're going to take this power jack, we're going to put it in this hole. Oops, wrong one. Right there. Now, it's a tight fit, and this jack screws in, but just in my experience, we need to make this hole a little bit bigger because we will never be able to screw this in fully. The plastic's too thick, so we're just going to make it a little bigger so it's easier to screw it in. I'm just going to use a drill for this and a drill bit. And I'm going to drill into the hole here. And though this bit actually fits into the hole, I'm just going to bring the drill in like a circular motion just to make the hole a little bit bigger. Okay, the batteries died in the power drill, so there is some other stuff we could do in the meantime. Here's the power jack. I'm going to basically, first of all, make that pin that's sticking out here, make it a little less long. Shorten it up a little bit just so it doesn't go jutting into the machine. You want to keep these pins as short as possible. Then we're going to scuff them up so the solder sticks to them, and then we're going to attach positive and negative wires to that. So when we put it in the computer, the wires will be already set, ready to solder. Okay. Oh. So I shorten that up. Now I'm going to scuff it up. I just use a file and I make a spot on these leads scratched up so that solder will stick to it. Okay, that should be good enough, because you don't want the wires to come loose from this jack. So now we're going to take red and black and we're going to cut a little piece of wire off, solder it to the pin, the inside lead, and then solder a black to the outside lead. Just going to expose a piece of the red wire here. Okay, and while we're here, we might as well expose the other half, other piece. That should be long enough. And now we have a wire with two exposed ends. You can throw it up on your helping hands. Again, this is the solder I use, Radio Shack. And I use a 15-watt Radio Shack soldering iron. Just going to put a little solder on both ends of this wire. Okay, now that wire is ready to be soldered. I'm going to take this red off the helping hand. Put our jack onto the helping hands. And then I'm going to solder the red wire to the inside part. Actually, I want to put a little solder on the leads here on this power jack first. Now you can see that the jack has solder in it now. Sorry if the focusing's not the greatest. Come on, camera. There it goes. And you can see the red wires attached firmly now to the jack. Problem is my hand keeps shaking when it's up there and the camera doesn't want to focus on it. Let's do the same thing for the black now. Make it about exactly the same size as the red. Expose some of the tip, or some of the wire. Measure it up so it's about the same size. Cut it. Okay, now we got exposed piece of black wire there. That camera doesn't want to focus today. Oh well. Like I said, I'm not Steven Spielberg here, so this. Sorry if the video is a little shoddy. And I'm just going to tin both sides of the wire. Just put a little solder on both sides of that wire. It's like pre-soldering. Making sure you got solder on both ends of this wire, so when you connect it to whatever you need to connect it to, it makes a real solid grip right off the bat. I like to do it this way because when you're dealing with laptops, you don't want to have your this is very important. You don't want to have your soldering iron on a motherboard or a circuit board pressing down. Like if this is the soldering iron, pressing down for long periods of time, you'll fry every component on the thing. So if you tin both sides of what you're going to solder before you attach it, you only have to put the soldering iron on there for a second for it to make a good solder connection. And then let's take this and attach it to the jack. Nice. So now we got our jack with a red wire and a black wire coming out of it. Alright, another thing we can do while the drill is charging, the batteries in the drill is charging, is actually replace the tip on the power adapter. This is the power adapter that they brought into the shop. That tip has hot glue on it. It's bent. It's like, I don't know if I've ever seen one that mangled. Well, what we're going to basically do is just snip it. And now we have that on the end. What we're going to do is take this radio tip I showed you earlier and this. These are adapter plugs. You get them at Radio Shack. And this tip is going to solder to here, to the wire, and then the adapter plug plugs right into the end of this tip. So let's get this part ready first. So what we want to do is expose some of the wire on the inside. So you just kind of rip off the shielding there, and you'll see that there's grounding wire that basically surrounds the outside of this white wire on the inside. You can just take the grounding wire and do one of these. You want to keep it. You don't want any strands of that grounding wire touching this tip. So we're going to twist it up and we're going to cut it real short. Like that. And then we're going to expose the tip of the white wire here. I think we're going to need a little bit more. There we go. And we twist that up. Trim it a little bit if you have to, just to get the strands. There's a lot of strands of wires here, and you just cannot have them touching each other. So we have that there. Now basically what I'm going to do is take this, which the adapter plug plugs into, see the adapter plug fits in like that, and we're going to take this and we're going to attach it to this. Now you see how the grounding wire is short here and the positive wire is long. We're going to do the opposite on this. We're going to make the positive wire short and the grounding wire long. This way it'll fit right together with that. And the reason I do that is because I definitely don't want the ground to touch the positive, the grounding wire to touch the positive. So that's why I cut them different lengths so they don't have a chance to touch each other. And this, I'm going to get rid of this long thing because this wire is not as thick as this wire. So I want to make as little of this white wire showing as possible. Try to make it so this thick black wire comes almost all the way to the top. Now in that trimming, I got little strands of wire all over my desk here, so I'm just clean that up. Are you finding this interesting too, Dad?
Mm-hmm, listen.
Okay, there's that. Probably going to cut it about there. So we're left with that. And like I said, we're going to make one long, one short. One long and one short to the same ratio that that's long and short. Tell you what, I never even tested these wires to make sure that the voltage is making it to this point. So let's do that now. First off, you make sure that they are not touching each other. And then you can plug it in. As long as they're not touching each other, you're okay. And then you can take your voltmeter. Well, one sign that's not good is this power brick. The light's not on, and it's making a funny little squeaky noise when I plug it in. So this is definitely bad. I don't know if there's anything we can really do for this. It's still doing the same thing, so let me just check the voltage on this anyway. We're getting 19 volts through it. We're actually getting 19 volts. And then the light on this thing just came on. Maybe there was a short somewhere in the cords. Let's see if we could duplicate that. The light's on now, we're getting 19 volts, so maybe something got jarred loose. I'm going to try to unplug it and plug it back in again. That's odd, I've never really seen that before where something magically comes to life. What could that be, capacitors charging in the power adapter?
Well, could be. If they were bad.
So this thing might not be good. I mean, we might not have enough. It might be damaged to the point where it's not putting out any amps, but at least we're getting the voltage. Let's try that again. Yeah, we're getting to 19 volts. Let's pretend that this is good for the time being, until anything proves otherwise. Okay, so unplug this before we do anything else. Give it a second to discharge. And then let's get back to the task at hand here. I'm going to set this voltmeter to test continuity. I'm going to put the red in the tip just so I know which one of these wires coming out of it is positive. The red's in the tip, and then I'm going to touch, see here? Okay, we got a beep, so I know this is the positive lead. So I'm going to mark that. I don't have any red, so I'm going to mark it with blue. Okay, just so I remember. For whatever reason. Okay, so positive needs to be short and the ground needs to be long, so I'm going to line that up right now. Okay, so I cut it like that, one short, one long, so it'll match up with this. And I'm going to put some solder on the end here. Okay, they're soldered. Now I want to do the same thing to the power adapter tip, the wire. Okay, I got a little bit of wire in my fingers there, so let's twist this up. Trim it a little bit, and then let's solder them up. The wires in these power adapters tend to resist solder, so you got to get them pretty hot. I'm just putting a nice coat of solder on that wire there. Gonna do same for this one. Okay, let me give you a look at this. Both of those ends are sufficiently soldered. Now I'm going to take a piece of heat shrink tubing and put it over this. Then I'm going to solder this to this, pull the heat shrink tubing over. The heat shrink I use is 1/4 inch is usually the best that I've found, the best size to use. And this is heat shrink tubing. If you never used heat shrink tubing before, it's better than electrical tape. It provides, you know, a good firm coating around the wire, and how it works is how it's named. It shrinks when you heat it. So I'll show you how to use it. Okay, I'm gonna put the heat shrink tubing over that wire. And then I'm going to solder these together now. You want to make a good solid connection, and this positive is not as solid as I want, so okay. There's the wire. I don't think it's going anywhere. Let's wait till the camera focuses in on that. Camera's not being good today. It doesn't want to focus on anything. Now I'm going to take a couple layers of electrical tape and kind of seal that up there. First I want to make sure there's no sharp edges on here that are going to break through the electrical tape. Just going to file this down a little bit, just because it's a real pointy edge. It might break through the electrical tape. Okay. I'll put a piece around the whole thing as well, electrical tape. Okay, like that. Now the heat shrink tubing should do the rest. Pull the heat shrink tubing over that. Heat shrink tubing goes right up to over the fins of the adapter plug. And we got that. I'm going to take a lighter and heat this heat shrink tubing up, and it's going to shrink into place. Ouch. You can take a little fan if you want. Cool things down a little faster. Ouch. And I think we got a nice, you can see how the heat shrink tubing just goes, fits right around the wire there. Like a nice fit. Going to give it another blast of heat just to make sure it's tight. You don't want the heat shrink tubing going anywhere. That should be good. Okay, we're going to let that cool down for a minute or two. I'm not going to use that little fan again. And just clean it up a little bit. Okay, make sure our connections are good. We could test for continuity between the positive and negative here, just to make sure that there's no short circuit. We don't hear a beep, so that's good. There's the beep. So one in the positive, one on the ground point. We don't hear a beep, so we know that our wiring's okay. If the wires were touching in here, we'd hear a beep when we did that. Okay, that should be cool enough. Let's plug the adapter back in. Okay, we're getting a red light. And we're going to test for voltage on the tip. Turn it to 20 volts. We should see about 19 on the voltmeter. $19.54. So we know our connection's okay. Our tip here is now ready to go. Okay, so earlier I tried to take this drill and make the hole here a little bit bigger so that we could more easily screw the power jack in. The batteries died in the drill, so now we have some battery power. So I actually just finished drilling the hole before we started the tape. So basically what I did was, let's see if I can get this in view here. Go into the hole here and move the drill around as much as you can. Try to get as much of that plastic rounded out, because we only need a little tiny bit. I don't have the exact size drill bit, so just put the drill in and move it in a circular motion just to make the hole a little bigger for this thing. Now I'm going to take this, put it into the hole, and just screw it right in. Okay, it was a little difficult, so I didn't do this on camera, but what I did is I screwed that in to the hole. I actually had to put a nut on the inside here up at the back, so when I tighten it up, everything becomes tight. And then you see the red and black wires there. All I need to do is put a little solder on the tips of these red and black wires down here that go to the motherboard, attach them to that, make sure everything's insulated, and we'll be okay. Okay, this is basically the finished product. You can see I tucked in. I connected the two wires. I put white electrical tape around that just as a signal and red around the other one. And I just kind of tucked them in there so they're out of the way. Next thing we're going to do is put in the CD drive. Okay, everything's back together. CD drive's in. Let's flip it around, plug in the power cord, and see what happens. Okay, moment of truth. I'm always afraid I'm going to see an explosion every time I put it in for the first time here. Okay, that fits in nice. Hey, we got a blinking light there. That's a good sign. It means the battery's charging. Hit the power. Power lights are lit. And you can't really see there, but the thing's on. And there's Windows. Power jack fixed.